With Kuzan being revealed to be the 10th Titanic captain, this changes everything, because if he stays with the crew, the Straw Hats are for sure getting a new member, but if he betrays, that means they're definitely not. So for the sake of this video, we'll assume Kuzan does stay with the Blackbeard Pirates and fights the Straw Hats, and we'll use Yamato as a placeholder for the final member because he did show signs of wanting to be with the crew, and it's just a bit of copium on my part. Okay, let me live. The Blackbeard Pirates are like the evil mirror version of the Straw Hats, which is why this battle will be very interesting and most likely will be the final fight to declare who will become the Pirate King. All of us have been making dream matchups for this eventual battle. Some are obvious while others are not, but this will be the rare occasion where every Straw Hat gets their own individual fight. Though I'm not gonna lie, I'm looking at the Straw Hats and I'm wondering how some of these guys are gonna overcome this obstacle, as they're gonna have a really rough time, as those Blackbeard Pirates do have some of the most broken and powerful devil fruits in the series. So today we're gonna discuss the matchups I think will happen, as well as how the Straw Hats will defeat the Blackbeard Pirates for Luffy to finally become the Pirate King. Now let's start with the obvious ones, the captains, Luffy versus Blackbeard, polar opposites, two sides of the same coin, Sun versus Darkness Part 2. This fight has been built up ever since Jaya, where their destinies were forever intertwined. Both of these guys are the prominent D members of this generation, as well as the only real contenders for the One Piece, as both of these guys have been climbing up the ranks and getting stronger as the series continues. It genuinely feels like Blackbeard is the evil version of Luffy. Even the way he recruits members like Aokiji and Shiryu was very Luffy-like, with Blackbeard terrorizing almost everyone Luffy cares about, and him and his crew probably leading into the downfall of Shanks and Garp. You can tell that this final confrontation is going to be intense and personal. The Sun versus the Darkness, who will come out on top this time, as quite literally Luffy represents the Sun as he ate the devil fruit of Sun God Nika, and Blackbeard is the literal representation of darkness. Now this one's going to be interesting, as both of these guys have the most powerful devil fruits in the entire series, specifically Luffy, a fruit so legendary that the world government were afraid of it. Now we all know by now the ridiculous nature of Luffy's awakening. It was able to overpower both Kaido and Lucci, as well as conjure things out of thin air like his goggles and turn his environment into rubber. This power truly is extreme, but in the face of Blackbeard, it means nothing, as he's able to shut this power off with the Logia Yami Yami no Mi. But unlike Blackbeard, Luffy is not a one-trick pony who specifically relies on his devil fruit, where Blackbeard went out of his way for decades to look for the most powerful devil fruits in history to bolster his crew's strength. Luffy, on the other hand, has been upgrading his haki, and that will be what he uses to overcome Blackbeard. Luffy has shown us that he's slowly becoming a haki master, learning advanced abilities like Future Sight, being able to damage people from the inside and hitting them without contact, and advanced Conqueror's haki. During their final encounter, Kaido tells Luffy that haki reigns supreme and is the key to ruling the seas, and is how Roger was able to become Pirate King. Not saying that Blackbeard doesn't have haki himself, he does. We saw him use it against the Seraphim Mihawk, and he most likely does have Conqueror's haki, as he's just as much, if not more, charismatic than Luffy, but him having advanced Conqueror's haki to a lot of people would be overkill, but it would still make a lot of sense. We've seen numerous times that Blackbeard's arrogance and ego has been his biggest weakness. Through his cockiness, it always allowed him to get big heavy hits and almost led to his defeat. And it's through these things that Luffy will be able to defeat Blackbeard, showing that the sun will always prevail and that he really is the symbol of hope and will finally become the Pirate King. We've talked enough about the captain, so let's talk about the right-hand men. Zoro versus Shiryu. I think this is another fight that is a shoo-in. They're both the second strongest in the crew, although I'd argue Aokiji is stronger than Shiryu, but we got that glorious cover spread of all the vice captains of the respective crews, including the Revolutionary Army. And Zoro is always seen fighting the second strongest in the crew, and Shiryu does care and love his sword just as much as Zoro does, as we see him cleaning it and really love his swords, having a special relationship with them. He was compared to Magellan, and we know that guy was a beast and one of the strongest characters in the series that I think a lot of people sleep on. And Shiryu has been sailing on the seas for 2 years, so he's gotten even stronger since then. But unlike Zoro, Shiryu is not afraid to get his hands dirty and will play foul tricks against his opponents, and it's even worse now that he has the invisibility fruit, which in my eyes, I'm not gonna lie, pretty lame devil fruit after all the insane devil fruit abilities we've seen in the series. I'm a little disappointed, but I think Oda will be very creative, and it's going to be very scary because he might be able to hide his presence with it, meaning that observation haki might not be able to work with him. I'm just going to assume he can hide his presence because otherwise this fruit is just ass. But I think this will lead to Zoro unlocking a new level of observation haki, which actually makes a lot of sense and will be one of the final steps he needs in order to challenge Mihawk, who's known as Hawkeye, who I believe probably has the strongest observation haki in the entire series, and the reason why Shanks is known as the observation killer due to their battles. And because this will be one of those rare times that Zoro actually fights a real swordsman, someone who actually loves and cares for their swords just as much, this could be the key factor for Zoro to finally achieve the Black Blades. I think this will definitely be one of the most brutal fights in the entire series, as Shiryu is a person that doesn't hold back and is not afraid to get dirty, but we also seen Zoro endure a lot of pain in order to achieve new greater strength, which I think he will definitely achieve after this battle and will be the final hurdle he needs in order to finally face the peak of the mountain, Mihawk. And the next battle is of course you versus the subscribe button, a battle as old as time. For more videos like this, I would greatly appreciate it. Also click the bell icon to stay notified for those of you who love that One Piece and anime greatness. Usopp versus Van Augur. Usopp's gonna have to put in work in order to pull this one off because Van Augur is a definite problem, and he's someone I don't think Usopp is nearly ready for as of right now. Van Augur is he is one of the best snipers in the world, probably number 2 right after Usopp, until hopefully the eventual battle between the red hair pirates and the Blackbeard pirates take place and he could either defeat or kill Usopp, which would make the battle against Usopp a lot more personal. As you remember, Usopp is the entire reason to Usopp becoming a pirate and for his dream to be a brave warrior. But this is going to be a really tough fight as Van Augur is no bitch. This guy has the warp fruit and could teleport wherever the eye can see, and let me tell you boy, he can see pretty damn far. That's just his natural ability. Throw an observation haki, this guy's gonna be a monster. This man Van Augur was capable of sniping a seagull over the Straw Hat ship while he was on Jaya and the Straw Hats couldn't even see an island in sight. That's nuts. This honestly would be a match made in heaven because I don't think we've ever seen 2 snipers go toe to toe. Like I can imagine these guys fighting from across the island, like Usopp's on one end and Van Augur's from the other, and these guys are trying to shoot at each other, which would be absolutely phenomenal. But as of right now, I'm not exactly sure how Usopp is going to be able to defeat him, unless at the bare minimum he's gonna need like future sight in order to pinpoint where Van Augur is before he even makes a move, which would be actually pretty good for Usopp's character, unless Van Augur has future sight as well, which isn't surprising as he's a pretty calm guy. Even though he's only done it once as of this recording, Usopp does have one of the best observation feats in the entire series, pinpointing Law and Luffy from across the island, which is absolutely insane. And when written correctly, Usopp has some of the most entertaining fights in the entire series due to the creativity and because it's character driven. And due to the importance of this battle and the stakes involved, and most likely being Usopp's final individual one-on-one fight, you can see why this fight right here is going to be very impactful. But it's through this battle, Usopp will not only become a brave warrior, but also be able to surpass his father, the greatest marksman in the world. Usopp has already been making a name and legacy for himself, and by surpassing his father, he will be able to put his name in the history books as the greatest to ever do it. But let's also talk about the other weakling, Chopper versus Doc Q. Both of these guys are doctors, and I think this is also a match made in heaven, as Doc Q is quite literally everything Chopper despises, a doctor that uses his skills for evil. This will be an opportunity to give Chopper some much needed character development and growth, but also some progress towards his dream. As you remember, Doc Q has the Sick fruit and can create illnesses and diseases at a whim, and I think this will be a great way for Chopper to help achieve his dream of curing all illnesses. If he's fighting against a guy that can create any disease in the world, then this will be a great opportunity for Chopper to find ways to cure it. Of course, I can't forget about Doc Q's loyal steed, Stronger, who ate the Pegasus fruit. Chopper can speak to animals, So this will be a way for us to learn more about Stronger and his personality. And Doc Hugh is always sick, so maybe Chopper through his kindness will help him cure it if he wants to. Personally, I don't really care about the fight perspective of it, but more so the character aspect. Now with those ones out of the way, the matchups from here on are going to be a little dicey and unpredictable, but I'll try my best. Starting with both Catarina Devon and Lafitte, as most likely both of these guys are heading to Egghead, and I think Oda's going to use this chance as an opportunity to set up their fights in the future. So I'm going to go out on a limb and say it's going to be Catarina Devon versus Nami, simply because Nami is always seen fighting with a woman. It's just the way things are. And we know Devon likes to go after beautiful women and cut their heads off and hang them, and well, Nami's sex appeal is a big aspect of her character. They both like to use trickery in their fighting style, with Catarina eating the 9-tailed fox devil fruit, allowing her to mimic other people similar to Bon Clay, but she's also considered to be the most dangerous female pirate in history, which is a pretty bold claim. But she was one of the 4 people to survive in the Battle Royale in Impel Down, and the only female pirate to join Blackbeard's crew, so clearly she definitely is one of the most powerful females in the entire story. And as for Lafitte, I think Brook would be the perfect matchup for him. Yes, he is the navigator, but considering their similar build, they're both from the West Blue, very fast, as Lafitte was able to sneak in a room consisting of 3 warlords and Sengoku, the fleet admiral. And both have hypnotic abilities, where Brook is able to do that through his music. Both wield a cane and have that gentleman personality, so I think this would be a great matchup for Brook. Oh Jesus, Sanji, I almost forgot about this guy. I think he'll fight Kuzan, because by default he's the number 3, because Shiryu set up to be the vice captain of the Blackbeard Pirates, and he's gonna fight Zoro, so obviously he's stuck with Sanji, which is actually a fight that's already set up, as Kuzan alongside Van Augur kidnapped Pudding, the would-have-been wife of Sanji. Fire and Ice, they both have a similar personality, going on like little espionage missions. They're both pervy but have a good sense of justice. Now on paper this would sound kind of wild and kind of a hard pill to swallow, even for me as a Sanji fan, to imagine him fighting and even defeating Kuzan, but here we are. Both Zoro and Sanji have already defeated the first and second commander of a Yonko crew, so therefore from here on out they have to fight tougher opponents. And the former admiral would be a good adversary for Sanji, who's already so fast he can seem invisible. He now has blue flames, which is hotter than his regular one with the Ifrit Jinbe, as well as having a durability, making him one of the toughest characters in the entire series, up there with King and Kaido. With Kuzan's ice, he usually likes to end the fights as fast as possible, but with Sanji's speed that's going to be hard to do, but also with his burning passion he'll be able to thaw out, and would be a way for Sanji to get that salty run back from the humiliating defeat he suffered from Aokiji 2 years ago. But just in case he does betray the Blackbeard Pirates, I'll say Sanji will end up fighting Vasco Shot. I do believe the strongest members of the Blackbeard Pirates came from Impel Down, and Vasco, he seems pretty strong, so why not? And he's also a freak that was willing to do some questionable things to Boa Hancock, and obviously Sanji loves to protect women, so obviously he's not going to stand by that. Next up is Nico Robin. This one's kind of tough, so I'm going to say Avalo Pizarro, the corrupt king who has the island fruit. He, with his devil fruit, kind of makes this a little tricky, but with Robin's devil fruit able to sprout limbs and even make giant forms of herself with the Demonio form and the clone version, I think she'd be a good matchup for Avalo Pizarro, who can control the island, but with her sprouting limbs and body parts wherever she wants, she can kind of counter this. And maybe she can awaken during this battle and allow herself to turn parts of the island into her own body parts, which I think would be a genius way for Oda to counter the island fruit by turning parts of the island into her own power. And with Robin being an archaeologist and preserving history, with Avalo Pizarro turning into an island and messing up that would obviously piss Nico Robin off. Could you imagine if he turned into or fused with Laugh-Tail or like Lodestar and messing with the geography or the ancient history of that island? That would definitely set Robin off. So now let's do Franky and Jinbe at the same time.
Pause.
So we're gonna lock it in and say Jinbe versus Jesus Burgess and Franky versus San Juan. You can switch them around and it will still work out. Now Jinbe, like Burgess, is the helmsman of the crew, but he also had a relationship with Ace, and we know Burgess likes to talk shit and might set Jinbe off and make the fight a lot more personal. Even though he got embarrassed by Sabo, he did get upgraded literally, as he has some cybernetic parts, but also has a new devil fruit, the strong fruit, and we don't know the upper limits. And considering those Straw Hats, I don't know anyone that will be able to handle someone like Burgess as someone who's able to throw mountains outside of the monster quartet. But also you can have Jinbe fight San Juan Wolf, as we have seen a couple of times Jinbe fight giants such as Big Mom and Wadetsume, so he's kind of used to it by now. And honestly, again, outside of the monster trio and Jinbe, I don't see anyone that could be able to handle San Juan Wolf. I said Franky because he does have the General Franky and the Thousand Sunny, and he's probably going to get some upgrades from Vegapunk that could maybe help him out to make the General Franky even bigger and thus be a good match against San Juan Wolf. Plus Franky is the shipwright, so him fighting the literal battleship would be pretty good. And it's funny, in the bad timeline, Oda drew that Franky would actually turn into a ship himself, so it would be funny to have Franky, who literally modifies himself and is like a living ship, fight against the living ship San Juan Wolf. But you can also do Jesus versus Franky, as he now has the cybernetic parts, but they're also very similar. They're both very manly and love to fight. This could be a brawl similar to that of Senior Pink. So either matchup works for me. And finally we have Vasco Shot. He's a weird one. He is from level 6, so he's definitely one of the strongest members of the crew. I'm not really sure where to put him. I think you can slot him in with anyone, but for today's purpose, we'll just say the last member of the Straw Hats, maybe Yamato. Her daddy was a drunk, so maybe she'll have a problem with that. But that's the video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. It was another long one, so if you made it to the end, I greatly appreciate it. Again, Aokiji being the 10th Titanic captain is crazy, as it changes a lot on whether or not the Straw Hats will get another member or not, and could be the reason why Yamato didn't end up joining in the first place. Personally, I don't think a new character should join because they weren't there for the struggles in defeating 2 emperors, becoming an emperor, and most importantly, finding out Luffy's real dream. But anyways, let me know in the comments what you guys think, who you want to see fight. Otherwise, I hope you guys have a good day and a good night. I'll catch you guys on the next one. Peace.